you can see like he was influenced by early electronic musicians that he grew up listening to, like Kraftwerk or Yellow Magic Orchestra being a very big one that has influenced a lot of Japanese video game composers.
Hmm.
And with early electronic synth music, yeah, melody, it's very danceable, hummable.
Mhm.
That definitely comes through in Kirby music.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Kirby Conversations. I'm Sean Douglas. I'm a writer and podcaster. And for this episode of Kirby Conversations, I am joined by two special guests for a music roundtable. We are joined by the two people that composed and or arranged the theme song you hear at the top of every episode. So we have Megan Kello here, who composed the original chiptune song Winds of Change that Duncan PixelTea Smith then arranged into a modern Kirby sound. So hi, Megan, and hi, Duncan. Thank you both for being here.
Hello, it's great to be here.
Yeah, it's an honor.
So for this episode, I thought we could just kind of talk about both of your careers and who you are, and maybe reflect on some of our favorite Kirby songs and how Kirby music has influenced us or inspired us over the years. And I'll also begin by just saying how we came to work with you. So when I was creating this podcast, I knew I wanted to have a Kirby sound to our theme song, but I didn't want to just hire someone off of Fiverr or something and say, make music that sounds like Kirby music, but isn't Kirby music. I felt like I needed people who actually kind of had an inherent sense of what that would sound like. So looking around social media, I came across your chiptunes, Megan, and they had that great Kirby sound. And I saw that Duncan had arranged one of them into a more modern symphonic sound. And I really liked that sound too. So I thought we could do something like that for the podcast. So thank you both for letting us use that song and the new arrangement of the song. And we'll play it later because there is a longer version of it than we get to use in the theme song at the top of every episode. But there's a longer version, so we can let everyone hear what that full version sounds like later on. But thank you both again for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Getting to work with another one of Megan's excellent compositions is always fun. So I had a blast arranging it in a modern Kirby style.
That makes me so happy. With every song, I think you've done a couple.
Yeah.
With the arrangements that you've made of the Friendship Fantasy sound originals that I made, every time someone just arranges one of my songs at all, it's oh my gosh, it's incredible to me. It never stops being amazing. So, and it just means a lot, especially because Duncan, you're just your style is it's so perfect.
Oh,
so modern Kirby. I love it.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great it's fun to channel that style, and it comes so easily because your compositions are just so effortlessly classic Kirby sounding. So it really is a natural, transition into the more modern take on the music.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, it was an awesome opportunity when Sean reached out to have me work on a theme for this podcast. It was very exciting.
Yeah, I was really kind of taken aback in a good way when Sean approached me, saying that he wanted to license one of my songs, one of my non-Kirby songs actually, for the podcast intro theme for the show. And generally, my music is free to use by anyone, but Sean, I think you insisted on paying a license fee. So
yeah, well, that just was the most professional way to do it. And
yeah,
I want to respect
definitely.
your talents as an artist, that you had created this thing that someone else might be using. Like it just
Mhm.
felt like the right way to go.
Yeah, and yeah, that means a lot.
So maybe this is a good place to talk about what is that Kirby sound that I think you both capture so well from different eras, whether it's the 8-bit chiptune sound or the modern orchestrated multiple instruments, that kind of sound. What is it that makes a Kirby song a Kirby song? Because I do feel like there's something ephemeral about it, but that we can immediately recognize, where a Kirby song doesn't sound exactly like a Mario song. It doesn't sound exactly like a Pokemon song or a Zelda song. It's got its own flavor. But what is that?
Yeah, a lot of people who are sort of in the know with regards to Kirby music, they always look to Jun Ishikawa, who was, the composer of the original Kirby's Dream Land, and he's been with Hal uh,
Mm.
up until I think this year, because apparently he retired.
I saw
Um,
that.
yeah,
That was surprising to see.
yeah, I was surprised too, but like, good for him. Like that's awesome. Like if
Mm.
anyone's earned it, it's him. And
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
ever since the very first game, like he just immediately established like such a strong identity, a strong musical identity for the Kirby series.
Yeah, the series has definitely like stayed true to the sound of those original games on the Game Boy and the NES.
Mhm.
It's still very much within that spirit, even as like you know the limitations of those systems are no longer present.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It
and
still sounds like Kirby.
mhm. And it's funny to think about it because like the limitations of the system pretty much are what gave Kirby its musical identity in the first place, and it's pretty much what's made Jun Ishikawa to like invent a new genre of music. Like
Absolutely.
something that's like always been sort of a dead giveaway ever since the very first game, but like mainly I associate it with Dreamland 3 is they have like in a lot of the songs they have like these really really fast like arpeggiated 16th note like ostinatos that if you listen to like Ripplefield 1 for example, like it's a pretty slow paced song,
Mm.
but like throughout the entire thing you're just like being constantly barraged with like this massive wall of harmonic information. Like not only is there like an arpeggio going on like throughout the entire song just never stopping, but it's harmonized, it's a harmony, so there's two at the same time at all times. Oh my gosh, it's hard to explain. I am not a music theory expert, but it's
No, it's pretty elaborate. I definitely associate those like crazy fast arpeggios with the Kirby sound.
mhm.
And
And
that
it's
definitely
something that
does go back to the limitations. When you only had a limited amount of sound channels, uh, arpeggios let you get that chordal sound into the music with
mhm.
only a few notes playing at one time. You're
Yeah, on the
probably more familiar with that side of
yeah,
things,
yeah,
Duncan.
it's yeah, both the Game Boy and the S and the NES only had two pulse channels to work with. The third it had another melodic channel each, but uh those are usually used for something different. Um, but like something that I find really interesting when you compare like not even just Ishikawa's music for Kirby, but like a lot of Japanese composers in general, they do tend to do that sort of arpeggio thing, but it's not like quite as frenetic as Kirby music
Mm,
tended to be back then. Um, but they Japanese composers for like older chiptune based systems, they managed to get a lot out of very little, and they didn't really rely on like those crazy like European style like Commodore 64, like those big
yes.
watery arpeggios that or arps as we call them in the chiptune
Mhm.
trenches.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd say that like a lot of what I associate with Kirby music is sort of a juxtaposition,
Hmm.
for example, between like simplicity and also complexity.
Mhm.
Kirby music somehow managed to be both.
Definitely. Even going back to Ripplefield 1 again, we were talking about the arpeggios in that song and how they're not harmonized 16th notes and they never ever stop. But the melody is like, it's just all whole notes pretty much, at least at the beginning. It's a very, very slow, very relaxed sort of melody. But it's the drums and the arpeggios and that the syncopated sort of bass line that like it gives it a sense of rhythm and energy that the melody probably might not suggest on its own. And that's something that's like, honestly, I do think Dreamland 3 is probably Ishikawa's I don't want to say magnum opus, but like it's definitely,
fantastic.
I think it's
Such
the
a good
best example. It's the best example of Ishikawa's style, in my opinion. That and Alcahest, which isn't a Kirby game, but it's an equally fantastic soundtrack.
I'll have to check that soundtrack out. I haven't actually.
Have you never heard Alcahest?
No, I haven't explored. I don't think
I've heard Alcahest either.
Much of their non-Kirby music.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, absolutely. Oh, it's so good. You got to look up at least the theme for the Huh?
I'm sure it's fantastic knowing who composed it.
Yeah. You got to at least look up the what was it? The temple theme from Alcahest. It's like, it's uncanny. That game came out in 1993. I think like just a few months after Kirby's Adventure came out for the NES, and Alcahest definitely has like a sort of proto Kirby superstar sort of energy to it, but it really leans very heavily into a side of Ishikawa's compositional style that we don't really see anymore. It's very like, I don't know, it's very somber by comparison. It's super, super interesting.
Is it the...
Sounds fascinating.
So I've looked it up. Is it the, like, Panakian Temple?
That's the one, yeah.
Okay, should we all listen to it together here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Sounds very Great Cave Offensive.
I know. Yeah, the title theme for Alcahest just, it straight up sounds like the Great Cave Offensive.
This is awesome.
It's so good, right?
This bass line.
I know.
Yeah, you can definitely hear the, like you said, the proto Kirby sound. But there is a different side to it. It is a little more somber.
Yeah, and the entire soundtrack is like that. There's this one song in it. I think the unofficial English title is, I think it's just like The Edge of the World or The End of the World. It's probably The Edge of the World. And it has this like very like slow and almost introspective, very, very, very like dark sounding. But it's in 5/4 time. So that's that. Like, yeah, so you have like the soundtrack is like, it's full of examples of Ishikawa just like messing around with time signature, like even back then.
That's cool to see.
One thing that strikes me about all of this too is that I feel like Kirby music, for as complex as it is and how much you can tell that so much is going on, they're always hummable. There's always a very simple core melody at the center of it that you feel like you can remember, that you can hum to yourself, that you could like pick out, even if you like stripped all that other stuff away, like you would still have that core sound there. And I think that's sort of what you were. I feel like that's kind of what I was thinking of when you were talking about that interplay between complexity and simplicity, and just how well it both works together.
And with these composers who have brought the Kirby music to life, it's definitely worth looking into what their influences were as composers. And when we're talking Ishikawa, you know, he's known within the Kirby series for more electronic or synth-based themes in the
very, very, very energetic as well.
And you can see like he was influenced by early electronic musicians that he grew up listening to, like Kraftwerk or Yellow Magic Orchestra being a very big one that has influenced a lot of Japanese video game composers.
Hmm.
And with early electronic synth music, melody, it's very danceable, hummable.
Mhm.
That definitely comes through in Kirby music. We should probably talk about Hirokazu Ando as well, who is
Yes,
another
yes.
half of the Kirby sound.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ishikawa laid the groundwork, but Ando,
Mhm.
I feel like with Kirby's Adventure, like it's got a sort of very similar sort of DNA to it to
Mhm.
Dreamland 1, but Ando, like his chord progressions and his like sort of sense of harmony, it's a lot different, and I'd argue a lot more complex than Ishikawa. I wonder,
Mhm.
like it's very clearly like very sort of classical inspired. One of his major
Mhm.
inspirations was Koichi Sugiyama, who was the composer of the Dragon Quest series,
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
and which is known for like having sort of classical orchestrated sounds.
Yeah, he definitely, Ando, focuses more on the orchestral or acoustic side of things.
Mhm.
And that, goes back to the thing I was saying earlier of how there's a contrast that defines Kirby music. This sort of electronic but orchestral coming together. It's so unique.
And I feel like there are signature instruments that we've gotten very used to hearing over
Oh
the
yeah.
years as
Oh
well.
yeah.
So what are those key Kirby instruments that you're likely to hear on a Kirby soundtrack?
Well, my first thought is what what people call the synth, capitalized
Yes.
the synth.
Mhm.
Um, it's it's a modified version of the Fairlight ARR1 sample. It's probably meant to be like R1.
Hmm.
It sounds like I don't know. It's hard to
Yeah,
mimic, but it's like you definitely know when you hear it. It's
it's
used.
like
It was
it's
actually
like
used
a
in that Alcahest song. It's
vocal
yeah.
choir type synth.
Mhm.
Very Kirby. Like I knew exactly what you were gonna say.
You knew it. Yeah,
It's
everyone
that
knows it.
it's it's so, and it's interesting because it's an iconic sample in its own right outside of the Kirby series. It's used in a lot of 80s music. You could hear it in like Kate Bush or Tears for Fears, Michael Jackson. And I'd reckon that its presence in that era of music is probably how Ishikawa got such a fondness for that sound. Um, it's 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 such a unique sample. It gives like an airy lushness, I'd
Mhm.
say.
And honestly, I don't think it would be the same at all if like if again, it's that thing of limitations breeding creativity and like sort of sticking around for the sake of like just because like he knows it's iconic. Uh
Mm,
the way that the sample is like sort of it has to be sort of compressed. It loops very quickly in its
yes.
original in the Super Nintendo because he had to make it fit on the within the Super Nintendo's sound RAM. So, but he just kept it that way all the way up until I think Star Allies is the last time that he used it. Um,
Mm,
apparently, like Shinya Kumazaki told him that like he didn't want there to be like as much of a retro sound to Kirby music going forward.
yeah, that is a little disappointing. You can definitely hear that they've stepped away from that in
Mhm.
like Forgotten Land, which
Yeah,
still has a great soundtrack, but
Yeah, honestly,
um,
Forgotten Land I think is a really interesting soundtrack because it's a really perfect showcase of how Ishikawa has sort of evolved as a composer, like alongside the series. Um,
mhm,
I think of like the song "Welcome to Wandaria," which is like it's it's a rather slow paced a rather slow
mhm.
paced song, but there's no real, it's not like Ripplefield One where there's like this constant like wall of harmony going on. It's just like you know, it's very like old and leisurely sounding, and I say that in a good way. Like when I say it's old sounding, it's very obviously intentional. The lead synth is like a distorted guitar that almost sounds like it could be coming out of like an old decrepit like park speaker. And yeah, just like that. It has this like really wistful. There's definitely like a wistfulness to it. When I think of like you know, like bittersweet Kirby music, Ando is the person I think of, but Ishikawa, like he definitely like tugs at those heartstrings a bit in ways that, and in songs and in places that you probably wouldn't even expect. I don't know, maybe that's just me though. I'm probably like just reading. I was probably just like reading way too much into that when I like, but
Oh
like
no,
it just
I
immediately.
totally agree.
Yeah, it just immediate like when I played the game for the first time and like listened to that song, and like, you know, this is before like any information came out about who composed what, and I hadn't unlocked the sound test yet or anything, but the song immediately jumped out to me as having been composed by Ishikawa still, because it's another genre that like I don't think we mentioned this yet, but after Return to Dreamland, which is I think like Ishikawa's last true sort of retro Kirby sound.
Yeah.
Because, you know, starting with Triple Deluxe onwards, they started more leaning into a more like naturalistic musical direction, which I think is a really good fit for the series. But I do miss like the sort of like aggressive, like very playful. It's just very Kirby to me. Ishikawa's sound. I keep calling them the sounds. Ishikawa's songs for Return to Dreamland. They're just like the encapsulation of Kirby music to me, and I really wish that like he had more opportunities to make music like that for the series. But the new direction is really good too, and he's definitely sort of settled into like his own like a new style for the series, for the new direction of the series. Like ska is a genre that he leans into a lot, and
love it.
Yeah, definitely. You can kind of hear that in Welcome to Wandaria. Like it's pretty slow, but I don't know if I would call it ska, but like it has some elements of it, like with the rhythmic like guitar.
Yeah, like Kirby music has gotten brassier over the years.
Oh yeah,
but in a kind of neat, funky way.
Yeah, a lot of that has to do with Ando too, because like he definitely leans into a lot of sort of like jazz inspired stuff, I want to say. Not necessarily just in terms of like the sound of it, but you know, just the chords that he always puts in his songs are just like unbelievably complex, and like
absolutely. Yeah, gotta love like the complex jazz harmonies that come up in some Kirby themes.
Yeah, I think of that the like the 6-minute jazz fusion song that he made for Battle at Blizzard Bridge in Forgotten Land.
Oh, it's so good.
So good. So good.
So what are your thoughts on the new kids on the block?
Oh, I think they're great. I have a feeling, I don't know for sure, but I have a feeling that each of them were sort of lined up to be the successors in a way to Ishikawa, Ando, and Shogo Sakai, who has also been with the series for a really long time. So the first out of all of them who joined was Megumi Ohara, who joined with Hal's sort of B team in Tokyo with Shogo Sakai, and she worked under him for many, many years. Well, not many, many years, but from like 2014 or 15 up until 2023 when Sakai retired. Her first soundtrack was Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, and that is a really fantastic one. Sakai did a lot of music for that too, but Ohara's tracks are very iconic. She did Rainbow Across the Skies, and like she's very obviously very proud of that song because she remixes it every chance she gets. I don't blame her. If I wrote that song, I would too.
It's so good. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally like living up to the predecessors, carrying on the spirit of Kirby music, the sound of the series. They seem to have like found like perfect fits for who to like pass on the torch to, so to speak.
Definitely. There was Yuta Ogasawara, who joined in 2017. His first soundtrack was Star Allies, and I think out of all of them, his style is probably most similar to Ishikawa's, but it's also like very, very much his own.
Mm.
And I think it's a really fantastic fit for the series. He was the music director for Kirby and the Forgotten Land, so like he his bass is in rock. He's a drummer. I know he did the arrangement of Welcome to the New World for the title, not the title, but the opening
Yeah.
cutscene and just like the in-game version of it. And he did a bunch of others too for that game. And
Yeah, there's definitely a bit of rock flair in that soundtrack for sure. Like more
That's
so
definite.
than a lot of other Kirby soundtracks.
Yeah.
Which seems to be his influence.
Yeah, his songs in Star Allies are really, really good too, though. He did. God, what's the English title? Because like I swear it's always changing. There's like a billion translations of it. The Planet Earthfall theme. That was Ogasawara. That was like, I think that was like the first. That was like his first assignment for the game. I think. I could be wrong on that, but I'm gonna have to like
Wow.
read one of the like soundtrack roundtables again. But yeah,
What a beautiful song.
that is it's so good.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, that one sold me right there. That's like, okay, this,
This series is in good hands.
yeah, it's in good hands. You know, this, like, just a gorgeous song.
And then for Forgotten Land, apparently Kumazaki asked him to make a sequel song of sorts, and that's how he got Northeast Frost Street. And
Oh, okay.
Northeast Frost Street, I think, it's one of my favorite video game songs of all time.
It's very good. I didn't know that it was sort of a successor to Earthfall, but I can see that.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah, it was one of those things where I made the connection like immediately when I first got to the game. It was like, oh, this kind of sounds like something that Ogasawara would make. And then, yeah, oh, it's so good. That song, it sounds like falling in love. It's so good.
Yeah,
That's such a good
beautiful.
song.
I was reading up on Ishikawa and Ando, and there was a translated interview with Keyboard Magazine for the series 25th anniversary. That's a great like treasure trove of
Oh, absolutely.
insight to these guys.
Yeah, that interview is how we
Definitely.
know pretty much anything
Yeah,
about them.
you know, if you're interested in Kirby music, and I'm sure everyone who's listening to this podcast probably is, definitely check out that interview. One thing that really stood out to me is that Ando notes that he doesn't aim for realism in any of his orchestral themes. Even if he's using a more orchestral or acoustic palette, he still he plays with orchestral instruments as if they're synths in a techno or electronic song. Sometimes they're so fast and intricate that they can't be performed by a real life orchestra, and often when Kirby music is played by live orchestras, they actually need to be heavily modified and rearranged in order to be played by actual instruments.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And Ishikawa, he said it's the same for him. In that there was a little video that they played before the Kirby 30th Anniversary Music Fest, in which Ishikawa talks about how when he composes Kirby music, he doesn't keep in mind that, you know, the possibility that someday someone might play those songs live. So he was like, I wonder how it will turn out.
They could just only be played by Kirby. Like, you can't
Mhm.
have only like 5 fingers on each hand. Like, you need his appendages to play these songs.
Yeah.
You need 2 stubs, and that's all you need. You can do a lot with those stubs, you know.
Yeah.
I think it was in the same interview that Ishikawa recalled how he wanted to surprise the players with the final boss theme for Kirby's Adventure, to have the music suddenly become intense and complex.
Oh,
Surprising.
are you talking about Epic Yarn?
I thought it was Kirby's Adventure, but
Kirby's Adventure. Because Kirby's Adventure, from what I can tell, that was a solo Ando joint. Because I remember he said that about Epic Yarn, though.
Might be getting
that
something
soundtrack
mixed up.
was.
But yeah, it's. I mean, it's a common thing throughout the series in that, you know, final boss theme, the final section of the game, things ramp up to 11, especially in the music department. And this element of surprise for people who might think, oh, it's just purely like a cute, ordinary game. Same with like Kirby Superstar. I'm pretty sure it was noted that including more intense or heavy rock kind of themes would bring a sense of surprise and humor to the soundtrack.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's another like defining characteristic of Kirby, and it goes back to contrast again. The cute and friendly aesthetic, but you'll have songs like the crazy time signature experimentation with Marx's theme, or the chaotic jazz of the Ripple Star theme, the trance of that pounding trance rhythm of Miracle Matter. The 0-2 theme is so like dark and foreboding. They're always experimenting and pushing things even further, and nowadays you have it where final boss battles are like apocalyptic scale and with accompanied by several minute long orchestral suites. Like, they're upping the ante every time, and I love it.
Oh my gosh, the final boss of Forgotten Land, the the theme that plays during it, Two Planets Approach the Roche Limit, that was composed by Hirokazu Ando, and he did like 14 different bridges that could play at different times depending on when the player would activate the second phase of the fight. So it's crazy. Like, how did they even think to do that? It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so. And also, I mean, I feel like we gotta talk about the names of some of these songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that a Roche limit would come up in the name of a Kirby song.
Yeah,
that was how I learned what the Roche limit was.
Yeah.
It's humorous how hard some of the names go.
Mm-hmm.
Star Allies had some wild names of songs.
I think for the longest time, one of the before there was an English translation on the Nintendo Music app, I don't know what those official songs are called. I haven't looked into it yet. But the English name that people used for one of the cutscene tracks that was on the soundtrack was something like Cowering Efficient of God, something like that.
It gets crazy. Like, I mean, considering that the game kind of has like some cult aesthetic to the baddies in that game. Yeah, some of those song titles are pretty pretty out there.
I do like that the sound for the movie theater in Forgotten Land.
Please don't inhale the cinema patrons.
Yeah.
So funny. Yeah, you mentioned the Nintendo Music app. I mean, for all the flaws that it has, I do really like that we're getting official titles for some songs in these games. You know,
I just wish they would credit their composers.
That would be nice.
Maybe then I would actually use the app.
uh,
Whatever.
I'm hoping that they'll add credit.
Mhm.
I'm hoping. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll be disappointed.
I mean, for the Kirby songs, I don't need it because I can just tell. So,
Yeah.
but what about the normal people?
Yeah. I'm not quite at the point where I can recognize like the composers for a Kirby song just by hearing it, but I'm sure if I spent enough time studying it, I would pick up on it.
Yeah, I've spent way too much time studying it.
I don't know. There's no such thing as too much time listening to Kirby music.
That is true. That's very true.
And I want to make sure we have time to talk about both of you as well. We started talking about the theories of Kirby music, and I feel like we could just fill the whole episode with that, probably even more than I expected to. But I want to make sure we have.
We've been
enough
recording
time.
for like 40 minutes.
Yeah,
already.
That was going to be the opening question. It's great. Always great to have more content. So, maybe starting with maybe you, Duncan, but we'll do both of you.
Sure.
How did you get into wanting to be a composer and composing music, and how was that influenced perhaps by Kirby music along the way?
Yeah, for sure. So I've always been a pretty musical person. I played piano since I was a small kid, and I took like well over a decade of lessons, specifically in like jazz piano. I don't play piano much these days. My main focus now is composing and arranging. When I was a teenager, I got a hold of FL Studio, and I've been composing ever since. Initially, I focused on cover songs, arrangements of my favorite video game music. More recently, I've been focusing on writing original music for games. Kirby has been a big influence for sure. It was actually among the first video game series I ever played, along with Mario. Just as a little anecdote about my experience with Kirby, the first Kirby game I ever played was actually the original. I remember when I was maybe 7 or 8, I had chicken pox and I was off school. So my friend let me borrow his Game Boy with Kirby's Dream Land, and I remember loving it so much and immediately wanting to go buy a Kirby game that I could have for myself. And the first one I bought was Amazing Mirror, which was probably the newest one at the time. And that game has a special place in my heart. It remains one of my favorites. I love how unique it is with the big open interconnected map. I'd love to see that revisited in a future game. And I, even though it's a bit of a black sheep as far as Kirby music, I do have a soft spot for Amazing Mirror's soundtrack, even if it kind of deviates from that typical Kirby sound in a lot of ways.
Yeah, Amazing Mirror's music is really interesting because it's the only mainline game that I don't think the HAL sound team was involved with in any capacity.
Yeah, I don't think they were at all.
Yeah, no, it was pretty much entirely Atsuyoshi Isemura who I think he was an in-house composer at DIMS at the time.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of he did a bunch of stuff before Amazing Mirror, and he actually reused a couple of his songs and like melodic motifs in Amazing Mirror from his older games like Farland's Story FX.
Really?
Yeah.
Like some of the songs from Amazing Mirror were in games before that, or
yeah. So the, the theme for Radish Ruins where it goes like da 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 da. That is actually from Farland's Story FX. That motif.
Wow. I'll have to look into that. Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, it's super cool. And he actually ended up stealing a bunch of those samples and using them in a Dragon Ball game that he went on to make, I think, the next year.
Wow.
Getting all these good ideas for future podcast episodes too.
Mm.
The like extended universe of games beyond just Kirby games that we might want
Yeah.
to mention at some point.
Yeah, sure.
So you were you got Kirby and the Amazing Mirror.
Yes. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, it's all good. Kirby and Amazing Mirror, yeah, that's definitely one of my favorites. Return to Dreamland blew me away when it came out, and it's still one of my favorites. You know, the game and its soundtrack is also one of my favorites. It's so good. I mean, I could list so many Kirby games, like the original Kirby's Dream Land, Kirby's Adventure. Honestly, I'd call those perfect games. They're so short but sweet, perfect gaming experiences, and soundtrack wise, like so many iconic songs. Like, think of the number of heavy hitting iconic songs in the classic Kirby games. I mean, Green Greens, DDD's theme, Gourmet Race. I mean, that there is like the trifecta.
Definitely.
But I mean, like Kirby 64 has an amazing soundtrack. Dreamland 3, I know was mentioned earlier, and love that soundtrack. Even
what are your thoughts on
Kirby's
Canvas
Block
Curse?
Ball. What's that? Sorry?
Canvas Curse?
Canvas. Oh, that's a very unique soundtrack. It's not one I listen to much, but I appreciate what it was doing, and some of the rearrangements of classic Kirby songs in that game are really like stand out.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a like unique feel that really fit the vibe of the game, I'd say.
I think so, yeah.
Off the top of my head, I'd have to say favorite Kirby song right now is Sky Tower from Return to Dreamland.
Yes, that's a modern classic.
Absolutely, like instant classic. As soon as I heard it, it was like, this is gonna go down as one of the best Kirby songs. So good. So good.
Yeah, clearly they agree, because it's always being remixed and rearranged. Absolutely. In like pretty much every single new game that comes out. And yeah, I think that's great. I think that's a great thing.
I love it. Like of the modern Kirby era, that's probably the song that's stuck around the most.
Yeah, honestly, I would consider it to be like the theme for modern Kirby. It's like, it's such a perfect counterpart to, the simple like fun of Green Greens.
Mm-hmm.
It's just as iconic, but Sky Tower is just, it's so much more like, there's so much more there. Like,
it's so good.
It's
so good.
Like I don't say that to take away from Green Greens in any way, of course, but just Ando's sense of, again, it's just his unique sense of harmony, and his chord progressions are always just they're always so satisfying, and it's so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I can think of few video game series that remix their songs as often as Kirby games do, where like you almost go into a new Kirby game like hoping that all those same songs are going to be back again. And the same way you fight Wispy Woods like over and over again, where it's like whenever I play a new Kirby game, it's like I hope I get to fight a tree. Like it's just like a core thing where we don't mind fighting the same style of boss over and over again. It's like, no, we're gonna get a new King Dedede's theme. I know we're maybe gonna get a new Green Greens, like, and we look forward to hearing those same songs again and again.
Yeah, like I hate to bring Sonic into this, but it's you probably already know where I'm going with that. With Kirby, I think like it's such a
actually. What were you gonna say about Sonic?
Oh no, I was just gonna like compare them. Like, because whenever Sonic brings back things like, like the Green Hill Zone sort of aesthetics, and classic Sonic is here, and it's like, okay, well, it's like, you don't really feel like the same sort of respect and like sense of tradition that you get with Kirby. Because with Sonic, it just, I don't know, something about it just feels a lot more hollow. Like it's lacking in confidence, you
Hmm.
know. But that's not what that's not what this is about.
No,
With
I
Kirby,
do know. I
it's
have heard people make that comparison before, and it's like when Sonic games bring back Green Hill Zone, people just roll their eyes at that. But with Kirby, it's like
yeah, you
people
see
are
Wispy Woods again. It's like they
cheering
clap
and
and cheer. Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely different in that way.
Yeah, I think the main difference I think is that Kirby, like, it's been an established thing for like pretty much the series' entire history to sort of call back to itself in a way.
Mm.
With I mean, even all the way back in Kirby's Adventure, you had that uh Dreamland 1 throwback level at the very end of the
Oh,
game.
so
And
cool. It's
yeah,
still so cool.
it's so fun. I don't think Dreamland 1 had been out for even like a year yet at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I've always loved that about the Kirby series. Paying homage to the classics is
Hmm.
like a tradition.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's like very obviously like because they're proud of it and like
hmm
because they respect the history so much.
hmm I mean, you gotta love just like how many DDD themes we've gotten
Oh
over the
yeah.
years, and
And how many of
somehow
them are so good. Like,
they always like outdo themselves
mhm.
somehow. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, it's so funny. I swear, Hirokazu Ando is the only person on earth who could take the same song and just keep rearranging it for like 30 years and make it sound fresh every
Yeah.
time.
Oh my gosh.
When I heard the Green Greens arrangement in Forgotten Land, I was like it's I mean, it's the perfect theme for Kirby's house in that game because like it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm home, you know?
It's home. It's perfect. What was that? Was it Kirby? Oh, it was like a 3DS spin-off thing, Battle Royale or something, and it had a crazy King DDD rendition. That was
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah. It
DD
was
Destroyer or something.
yeah, that was Battle Royale. Yeah.
Oh, that is an unbelievable take on DDD's theme.
Oh, I need to look this
Unbelievable.
up.
Um,
You gotta
Battle
hear it.
Royale, I think, was made by HAL Tokyo, which would have been Megumi Ohara and Shogo Sakai. And I'm pretty sure Ohara was the one who arranged DD Destroyer Z. I could be wrong on that because,
That's what it's
uh,
called. It's so
there-
good.
yeah, their styles from back then are kind of hard to tell apart from each other. But I
Mm.
think I think he only just did the menu theme for Battle Royale.
hmm Yeah, I didn't actually play that game, but I
I
heard
did.
that song and I
I
was
played it way too much.
like, was it good? I don't know
I
much
think it's
about
really underrated. A lot of people give it flack because like, oh, this should have been a $20 eShop game, and it's like, yeah, but it's fun though. It's good.
And then, Megan, I want to make sure we get to you too. So,
Oh,
what is your background and how you came to chiptune music, and how was that influenced by Kirby?
okay. Well, to be honest, I don't really have as much to talk about as Duncan did because I have no formal training with music whatsoever. I kind of just like discovered. Well, first it was first it was like the copy of Finale Notepad that came with like something for school that I had when I was in my I don't know, I must have been in like middle school at the time. Um, but literally just instead of doing homework, I was just mess around in Finale like all day. Just like making the worst covers of Kirby music you've ever heard in your entire life. Um,
it.
and then a little while later, I discovered Famitracker, and just like spent 2 or 3 years just doing nothing but covering like video game songs that I really liked from Kirby, Pokemon, a couple others, but Kirby I think was kind of my bread and butter for a while, and eventually I started feeling confident enough in myself that maybe I could try writing a couple original songs. And the song that is, you guys are using for the podcast, that I think was like the third song that I ever composed, like ever. I must have been like 17 at the time. But yeah, Kirby, like I've been a Kirby fan like pretty much ever since I can remember. The first game that I remember playing at all would have been Nightmare in Dreamland. And of course, Kirby's Adventure has gone on to become my favorite game of all time. And Nightmare in Dreamland's good, but Adventure, like I just completely fell in love with it. Its style, its look, its sound, just everything. And it's weird. I love Kirby's Adventure for like a lot of the same reason that I love Sonic CD, and it honestly just really just comes down to vibes,
It's definitely got the vibes. Kirby's
Mhm.
Adventure. I love the look of it for sure. The backgrounds.
Yeah. Oh, it's
It's
so beautiful. Just an
perfect
absolute
game,
work of art.
like I said. I've never played Nightmare in Dreamland, but
It's fun,
I missed
but
out on that somehow.
yeah, Nightmare in Dreamland it's a really good, fun Kirby game, but it kind of misses the point of Adventure in a lot of ways. Like a lot of the art design just is it kind of gets lost in translation a bit,
Uh,
but
gotcha.
it's still really fun.
I actually really appreciate how, like, I like the look of that game. I think because I like that it feels very different from the source material.
Mhm.
Whereas I think if it had just been like too close to the source material, sometimes it can feel a little bit like why was something remade? So I
Yeah,
like that
it
they did
probably
the
just would have been like
same.
a pale imitation.
Yeah, so I like it as like a new sort of Game Boy Advance-ified version of that game.
Yeah. The art direction is super interesting. I love the backgrounds in it.
I mean, I'm a big fan in general of that sort of GBA to DS look of the Kirby
Mhm.
series. I think those like sprites they're very pleasing to me. Maybe it's just nostalgia, but
No, you're right. You're right.
I have a
There's like,
fondness for that era.
mhm.
Mhm.
But yeah, Nightmare in Dreamland was the first game I ever played. Just not just with Kirby, but ever, I think.
Oh wow.
Um, so that obviously like had a big influence in like, oh, I'll cover like Orange Ocean today. I would like make a new cover and film like every single day. I don't know where that passion went, but that's just what happens when you have a lot of time as a teenager.
It's true. It's true.
Um, but then I think my next game would have been Superstar Ultra, and that is when like Kirby music like really started to jump out at me as like something special, because the music in Nightmare in Dreamland is really good because it's just the music in Kirby's Adventure, really. So the compositions
Yeah.
are always going to be super strong, but I really don't think that the arrangements are all that great. They kind of read to me as if they were like rushed for whatever reason. It's just kind of like a one-to-one translation of the arrangement. Data? I
Yeah.
wouldn't say data, but like it's just it's like if
From what I've heard,
it,
it's serviceable, but
yeah,
nothing
it's
special.
definitely serviceable. Like it's perfectly fine, but Superstar Ultra is very, very, very special.
It kind of reminds me of like the difference between the arrangements in Donkey Kong Country Returns versus Tropical Freeze.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
Returns was very
it,
just like one to one, just like it sounds like what you'd expect, but it's nothing that special. That's just my opinion, though.
oh my gosh, I'm gonna quote a friend of mine from recently. They were talking about Donkey Kong Country Returns, and they were like, "Oh, the composer heard the tasks that like, oh, it's okay, it's just funny monkey game. You don't need to go that hard." And the composer was like, "All right, hear you loud and clear," and he didn't.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, Superstar Ultra, like songs like Candy Mountain, Peanut Plains, pretty much every single song in the Revenge of Meta Knight, and of course the ending theme. The ending themes for all Kirby games, like they always like sort of stir something up in me,
Oh
like
yeah,
no matter how much I listen to them. It's
so
so
good.
yeah. In like between like 2016 and 17, I had this idea to have like, oh, I'll get a bunch of my chiptune friends together and we'll do like a little like chiptune tribute arrange album for the 25th anniversary, and we did, and that was really fun. And I think that sort of like made me want to try and make. I arranged like 15 or 20 different songs for that album, so I was like very, very familiar with how sort of like how Kirby music worked at that point.
Mhm.
So I felt comfortable enough to be like, just to feel like trying my hand at making something that sounded like Kirby myself, original. And that was how Friendship Fantasy came about. I think that the first song that I made for it would have been Fluffy Forest, which that was like, the prototypical like green greens, big forests,
Yeah.
like peanut plains kind of deal. And to this
When
day,
I
I'm still
just
really proud of it.
like when I discovered that whole collection of Kirby style songs, I was so amazed. Icing Island feels like a lost Kirby song to me. It's so authentic. It's unbelievable to me.
That means a lot
You
to me. Thank
like
you.
you killed it. You absolutely killed it.
Thank you. Yeah,
And as a side note, I'm always amazed by people who make music in chiptune trackers because I've downloaded trackers and tried to learn, and it is so beyond me.
yeah, I
It's
honest to God,
impressive.
the only reason I was able to learn to the extent that I did was because I spent way, way, way too much time on the Famitracker forums when I was like 15, 16. Just like downloading other people's, Famitracker modules and just, studying them, seeing, you know, the cool tricks they did to sort of get
Yeah.
these crazy sounds out of the NES Famicom. And like just from doing that and like watching this like ancient tutorial video to like just to point me in the right direction. I think those videos must be like 15 years old at this point.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
Yeah, it seems
it's
like it takes a lot of practice. It's very like foreign coming from being used to like working in a piano roll in something like FL Studio. It's so different.
yeah, and like that's it's funny. I was just thinking about that. Like when I look at a piano roll, when I look at FL Studio, I am just so like completely overwhelmed. Like I can't get anything done in FL Studio.
Oh.
I want to try something simpler like Ableton or Reaper or like even just like
Mm.
Renoise, which is it's a proper DAW that has tracker interface, and
Ah,
that sounds like exactly the kind of thing that I've been wanting, but I
yeah.
don't know, just I don't know why, but I just haven't been able to take the plunge.
And then are you two both, if people are interested, are you two both still, are you accepting composition work? Are you free
Yes,
agents here? Okay.
I'm always looking for new opportunities. So definitely if anyone listening needs a composer, you can talk to me.
Yes. Please, and please hit up Duncan because at the moment, I can't accept any offers.
Oh, no, yeah, totally fine. And then you can also find Duncan's work at PixelTea on YouTube. We do a
Yes,
lot of
yes.
really great covers of other songs. I see you have a recent one that I was listening to before we recorded, the horseback riding song from Breath of the Wild.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, that was a fun one. Yeah, on my channel, I mean, I do a lot of different things. You'll find originals, a lot of cover songs. That's the main place to find me. In my community posts, I'll link to any other things I've worked on. So yeah, if you're interested, you can check out my channel.
All right, fantastic. Well, is there anything else either of you want to share before we go?
I'm good.
I think I'm good too.
All right, well, I'll just say definitely, if you're listening, please check out all the links in the show notes, look up their music, support these two fantastic artists. And thank you all for listening. This has been Kirby Conversations. I'm Sean Douglas, and I host the podcast along with Bridget, Gigi, and Kai, Captain Dangerous, Parker. Our theme music is, I always say the same little spiel, and now we have them here with us. So our theme music is by Megan Kello in a new arrangement by Duncan PixelTea Smith. And I'll play the full version of that song at the end of this episode before we go. And if anyone wants to reach out to the show, they can email us at mail@kirbyconversations.com. And please give us a follow on social media. We are most active on Instagram and Blue Sky. So thank you both so much. We will be back soon with another episode of Kirby Conversations. Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you.